Would you dare to confess your darkest sins if someone already knows them? Before we dive into this disturbing story, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you crave forbidden passion, betrayal, and crime-filled mysteries, don't forget to subscribe for more. The air inside St. Augustine's was thick with incense and silence. Sunlight spilled through the stained glass windows, painting the wooden pews with red and gold. Olivia stood in the center of it all, her fingers tracing the edges of an old hymn book. She didn't believe in God, but she believed in beauty. The church was under restoration, and she was here as a volunteer, or at least that's what she told herself. In reality, she came for him, Father Ethan Monroe, young for a priest, mid-30s, sharp jawline, haunted eyes. His presence commanded attention, yet his voice was always quiet. Too quiet. When Olivia first met him, he barely looked at her. But something about her lingered in his mind. And when he finally did look, she saw it. The hesitation. The flicker of something sinful beneath that saintly mask. At first, it was just stolen glances, unfinished sentences, accidental brushes of fingertips over communion wine. Then, the church grew emptier at night. One evening, a storm rattled the stained glass. They were alone in the candlelight. Olivia, in a thin dress that clung to her curves. Ethan, tense, gripping the edges of the altar like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Then tell me to leave," Olivia whispered. He didn't. Instead, he reached for her, his fingers ghosting over her collarbone before tangling in her hair. His lips crashed against hers. Years of repression unraveled in that single moment. Pinned against the wooden pews, Olivia arched into him, her breath hot against his neck. His hands explored where they shouldn't, lifting her dress, his wedding band of faith forgotten as he pulled her onto his lap. The storm outside raged on, covering the unholy sounds inside. And from the shadows of the confession booth, someone watched. The next morning, something felt wrong. Ethan woke with scratches down his back. He hadn't noticed them last night. Olivia's nails were sharp, yes, but something about them. They weren't hers. In the churchyard, a crow lay dead. Its wings twisted, eyes missing. A note was placed beside it. "I see you." Ethan's breath turned to ice. Did God know? Did someone else? When he checked the security footage, it had been erased. That same day, Olivia's apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen. But on her bed, a single priest's collar was left behind. And then people started dying. It started with Father Isaac, the older priest who worked with Ethan, found hanging in the church bell tower, his face frozen in terror. No suicide note, just a Bible clutched in his stiff hands, its pages ripped out, replaced with photos of Olivia and Ethan together. A warning. Ethan fell to his knees. He had buried countless sins, but someone had dug them up. And Olivia? She was next. As fear wrapped around them like a noose, Ethan and Olivia searched for answers. They weren't just being followed, they were being played. The security cameras caught no one entering or leaving when Isaac died. Olivia's phone recorded a whispering voice at 3 a.m., but she had been asleep. The church doors locked on their own during Mass, trapping Ethan inside. And then, they found the journal. Buried deep in the church archives, written in elegant, unholy script. It belonged to Sister Catherine, a nun who had died decades ago, a woman who had once been in love with a priest and murdered him in the name of God. Her spirit had never left, and she had been watching all along. The church bells rang at midnight, but no one was ringing them. Ethan and Olivia raced up the tower breathless. The wind howled, the candles below flickering out, and there she was. A woman draped in black, her veil flowing, her face shadowed. She stepped forward, and Ethan felt her. Not physically, in his mind. Her voice slithered through him like a prayer of damnation. "You are like him, the priest who broke his vows, the man who betrayed me." Ethan trembled. "Catherine." She smiled. "I must cleanse the wicked." Suddenly, Olivia screamed. Invisible hands pulled her back toward the open window. The wind roared, her body lifted off the ground. "Confess," Catherine whispered, "or she dies." Ethan's heart pounded. "I confess." And just like that, Olivia fell. Silence. Ethan collapsed, his body racked with sobs. But when he looked down, Olivia wasn't dead. She stood at the bottom of the bell tower, staring up at him. And behind her, the Watcher. Not a spirit, not Catherine, a man. Dressed in a long black coat, his eyes unreadable. He stepped forward, pressing something into Olivia's hand. A knife, and she smiled. "It's done," she whispered. Ethan barely had time to register before Olivia plunged the blade into his stomach. As he collapsed, choking, she leaned close. "Did you really think you were my first?" Blood pooled between them, and the bells of St. Augustine's rang one last time. If this shocking story left you breathless, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Who do you think was truly in control? Ethan, Olivia, or the unseen Watcher? Drop your theory below.